when you invoice a client, what are some of the common fields that you would want to include on your invoice? You would want to include the company or the client name and address, their contact information, and then also invoice number and job number, and some level of description of the services you provided, the amount due, the amount owed from your client to you, and a breakdown, further detail of the billing that may depend on how much detail the client requires. I know most of the times in the accounting industry, we typically send a pretty general invoice that may have a few line items, but it may just say for professional services rendered in this specific one or two areas. But then sometimes clients will want a further breakdown of, okay, well, what made up that number? So make sure you have that available, even if you don't put it on the original invoice. And then the payment terms, how quickly do you require your clients to remit payment to you? Typically within 30 days would be a best practice. And then ways for your clients to make payment to you. And we'll get into that a little bit more too, but providing them with the easiest or the most convenient options for them, understanding what the best options, their preferred way of making payment, make their life easier, will help you get paid quicker. So making sure that your invoice includes the ways that they can make the payment, and then any other memorandum type notations, where to send checks if they do send a check, and having your company logo be prominent on the invoice as well. And just one other point I wanted to go back to on the contact information. Sometimes the client that you may be working with might not be the person in the organization that is going to pay your invoice. So it would be helpful if possible, when you're starting up the relationship, to just understand who that ultimate person would be, where you're going to remit the invoice to, if it's someone different than the person you're working for on your medical renting project. So yeah, just including all of this relevant information will make it easier to get paid for your good services in a timely manner. As far as how often do we want to invoice a client, generally it would be at the end of a project. You try not to be premature about it. You do want to give your client a fair chance to look at your work product and make sure that they're happy with it before they actually receive an email with your invoice. It is, I would say, generally good to send the invoice close to the time that your work product is delivered, because it's top of mind with your client. Everybody's most likely really satisfied. They're probably more than happy to pay you, but do allow for ample time for the client to review the work product before presenting that invoice to them. If you prefer not to, depending on how your business is scaling, a good problem will be having a number of clients to bill. And if it gets to be a lot, you may want to set up a process at your month end where you're looking to bill your various clients, if you don't have time to, say, bill them right after a project is completed. So, but at least having a regular cadence, I mean, at least within a month, I would say. You don't really want to let it drag out for 2 or 3 months and have your client forget the good work that you provided for them and then send them a bill that late. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, but these are just best practices, I would say. Another thing with monthly, you may have arrangements set up with your clients where they're like longer term agreements or retainers. So you're essentially invoicing them the same amount every month. So that would be a good example of, like, at the end of every month, sending out that retainer type invoice. And also requesting an upfront retainer or an amount upfront when practical, or when you can. It's always good to get some of the money at least upfront as you're starting a project, based on if it's a new client you're working with, or maybe if it's a long-term established relationship, not as important to get that upfront, but just be aware of the different options there on the frequency of billing clients. And then, yeah, just getting back to the types of payment options you want to offer for your clients. Generally, all types of payment options will incur some sort of transaction or processing fees. Generally, credit cards will, bank transfers may also incur some sort of fees. But again, just kind of working with your client, understanding what their preferred payment method, will be. Do they want to send you a check, or do they prefer an electronic transfer? And do your best to accept or adapt to those systems whenever possible. Just make life easier for the client when it comes to making payments, and you'll get the money quicker as well. And then with your invoicing system, if you have any concerns that it may not be operating how you intended it to be, always make sure you can test it out. You can create an invoice to yourself and understand what the client experience would be like receiving that invoice and having to pay it, and just making sure that everything is set up smoothly on their end of things. And then if you do that within your accounting system, setting up kind of a dummy invoice or payment, make sure to go back and delete that from your system afterwards, since it's not a real transaction.